Hello and welcome to Coffee with Dr. Carla. I'm Dr. Carla and this is Kevin Anderson. And today we are going to have a little conversation around some mental health issues so we can hopefully end the stigma. So today's topic is about boundaries, and I will tell you that I think every time I mention boundaries to a client, um, I think they look at me like I'm crazy, or they tell me that I'm just being mean. And so I'm just curious, what has your experience been with boundaries?
So boundaries, I think we all learn a little bit about it as we're growing up, where our parents are kind of defining that for us in the beginning. And for me, it was never really something that I gave too much thought about
Right.
until I started to do some introspective work, self-analyzation, kind of seeing how I felt I was doing in life, where I wanted to go. And I kind of look at a lot of things emotionally, how I'm impacted by external events and how I'm doing overall based on how I'm feeling.
Right.
And so the first time I really considered boundaries was during a counseling session.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I really gave it some thought and just started paying attention to like relationships I had and the way that things were affecting me, even as far as like social media. If I'm going on there, how's it affecting me? And I tended to gravitate towards things at the time would create kind of a negative emotion within me.
Okay.
And so that was when I was like, okay, I gotta set boundaries for certain things. So certain people that are in your life that, a lot of people, not to generalize, but a lot of people are very into drama and gossip and stuff like that.
Yep.
All the stuff on the news, negative things.
That's what sells.
100%. It's actually funny because in this one Facebook, we have a podcast, a couple coaches and we changed one of our titles. And this whole time we're promoting positive information, everything. We put something that people didn't like, and we got more interaction from that than anything we posted positive.
Right.
But yeah, so
Right. Right. And unfortunately, our brain will naturally go to the negative because it's a survival tactic. But the reality of it is, too much of that negative is going to eventually incapacitate you, especially if you're talking about really toxic people or really toxic things,
right.
right? So I'm curious. So, all right, so you're more aware now
hmm
of all these boundaries. What did you do? How did you figure out like what those boundaries had to look like? Because I mean, I'm sure it wasn't a complete cutting out of every single person or thing that was toxic, because that would be
I have no friends
that
anymore.
would be the monk on the mountaintop, you know.
Yeah. Honestly, it was kind of like that in the beginning, to be honest,
Okay.
until I could establish what was healthy for me to be involved with. I did become the monk on the mountaintop, so to speak, and focus more on meditation and things that would create positive feelings within me. So it was cutting out some things completely, getting off social media completely for a month, as a goal. Staying away from toxic, maybe not completely, but toxic people, some that were really toxic altogether, and then some that just weren't as bad or didn't have as much of an effect on me, kind of like weaning myself back into relationships, and also verbalizing like this is okay for me, this is not okay for me, and starting to really live more authentically as to what I can.
Oh, setting expectations for how people treat you.
Yeah,
Crazy thought you got there. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
But along with that, it's a balance, just like everything in life, in my opinion, and it's not just blaming others like you're the reason I'm feeling this way. It was me assuming responsibility. I'm not doing well in this situation or this conversation. I'm going to separate myself. And I'm not blaming anyone, I'm just accepting power over what I can control in my life.
So whatever was going on in that interaction triggered something within you that didn't feel good.
Right. And
Okay.
so, over time, I think it's just development of understanding. And now for me, it's more in control, even when things are happening that I'm not completely in control of. I don't, I'm more cognizant of how it affects me, so I don't allow it to affect me as much. And everything comes from our thoughts in general. So if you can maintain somewhat of a positive outlook, regardless of your circumstances, you're going to be less affected emotionally. So that,
Yeah. So I'm curious. Um, are there certain things that you put in place boundary-wise? Um, I almost said rules, but I guess rules could work
Yeah.
too. But are there certain rules that you kind of live your life by um, to help kind of create the structure that you know is that's going to be the most beneficial to you?
Um, yeah, every day I have a vision for how I want my day to go, and not so much rules in the sense of like if, because I think what happens is we create this structure for ourselves to an extent, and a lot of people like me, we come down on ourselves really hard if we don't accomplish something that we want to or we set out to.
Right. Okay.
So a lot of it's been about having a vision for what I do want, trying to follow along, but accepting compassionately if
Ha!
I
Yeah.
don't
Okay.
follow through completely. Because I'm human, we're all human. I think the point's just to do the best that we can, and be compassionate. We're always typically compassionate towards everyone else, but
More
when you
so than
can
we are to ourselves, for
exactly
sure.
when you
Yeah.
can turn that inward, it kind of takes the pressure off and understanding that we cycle, human beings cycle. You're not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
So I think along with that, and those were the main rules, is like be compassionate, be understanding, be grateful. Developing that relationship with myself was the big thing. As far as boundaries, I mean, like I said, it in the beginning, it was if it was something that really impacted me negatively, if I would come out of a situation or a conversation or something, the majority of the times feeling worse than I went into it,
Yeah.
it was like cut that out until I built some strength within me through meditation. Um, Poetry was big for me, journaling, gratitude work, stuff like that.
Or some parameters in which to engage with that situation or person again.
Yeah, and then also, when you can communicate clearly with someone and not make yourself the victim by blaming them for how you feel, you can let people know, especially if they love you and you love them, I don't want to talk about things like this.
Yeah.
Like, this is not what I want to engage in. And the people that care about you will respect that. And although it can sometimes be second nature for people to bring up certain things, when you just don't respond, I think they remember, oh, you know what, this is
Right.
not what we're going to engage in, type of thing.
So, like many, many decades before, when I first started off in my other career, um, so I was like in my, early 20s, teaching. I remember my supervisor said to all of us, so the way it was set up was we were part of a co-op. So we were teaching in different schools. So our supervisor wasn't the principal. So she was supervising people at a bunch of different schools. And she said, look, I know that you can't call me or engage in any sort of conversation during the school day because you're busy with the kids, but after school is fine. Just so you know, between 5 and 7, my phone is off. I will not look at
Mm-hmm.
email. I will do nothing with it because that's my family time. And I remember at the time going, okay, well, first of all, I don't think I'm going to engage with you between 5 and 7. That seems kind of weird that you would even mention it. But then later on, I'm like, really? You turn off your phone and you don't answer it? And I know for a while I thought it was weird, but reflectively over the years, I thought, good for her. Long.
Yep.
I hope she's still doing. I hope 30 years later, she's still doing it, especially with how. That was. Dare I say that was pre cell phones, so
The
I
good
could
old
just
times.
I could just imagine that she would have that boundary in place, like, hey, look, you all both can do whatever you want, but I'm not responding or even looking at anything between these hours because my family matters and I'm going to have dinner with them and we're going to play. I'm going to do whatever it is that I
Yep.
need to do, right? And, whether I understood it or not, or I agreed with it or not, was irrelevant. What was
Yeah.
relevant was that was her boundary.
Yeah.
And so,
It's a
therefore,
personal decision.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And we're speaking a lot, like just in general about boundary setting, but I think a place that I've identified personally that it's extremely useful is in intimate relationships.
Ah, okay.
Because the more time you spend with someone, the more situations occur, experiences, and I believe that everyone's goal should be to take care of themselves first and foremost over anyone else, fill their own cup.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're not where you need to be, it's difficult for you to help someone else because then you're draining your own energy and your own self, right? So having time alone like that, like, or with family or something, and setting that time, even in a professional setting too, because people want to work, make money, and get consumed by things, versus like, I need time daily to take care of myself, ground myself, and get
Right.
myself to where I need to be.
So, as we kind of finish up here, if the people watching this walked away with just one thing about boundaries, what would you say that one key takeaway should be?
Whew. One,
Nothing like putting you on the spot, right? But I mean, I know there's so much more we could say about boundaries, but
I
we
think,
don't have decades to talk about
yeah,
it. So,
just in general, to identify how things affect you, whether that's people or experiences, whatever external, and set realistic expectations for yourself, and make conscious decisions with what you allow yourself to be a part of or not, based on how you're feeling, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah, and then not feel guilty about it, and do that in a
100%.
very unapologetic way.
Yes.
Because if you are not at the best place for you, then it'll be really hard to be there in any other capacity
Right.
outside of that.
I
So,
agree. Yep.
all right. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Remember, you can change your thoughts, discover your potential, and transform your life by focusing on your overall well being. And until next time, continue working on being the best you possible. Bye.